And good morning. Welcome to Mind the Moment's Tuesday or Thursday morning mindfulness session brought to you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. As you all know, this is a place where we invite experienced mindfulness instructors to talk with us about what mindfulness means to them and to discuss as a community how we can incorporate these practices into our lives. I am Suzanne Rowe Palacino, and I'm so happy to be here with Tara Healey, founder and director of Harvard Pilgrim's Mindfulness Program. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, Suzanne. I'm happy to be here too, and happy to be with all of you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
So today, Tara will start us off by checking in with the group. Then she'll lead us with in a guided meditation practice. And after that, we'll have time for questions. So as always, if you can open up the chat at the bottom of the screen, and if you're interested, you can click on the drop-down menu and choose panelists and attendees so you can see all the comments real time as they come in. So Tara,
yes,
you check in and say hello to everyone.
Yeah. I'm also just changing my settings so I have all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, you would be the only one seeing my comments. So yeah, I thought I just wanted to kind of check in with people this morning before we get started. And my question to you is, what's your mood? Kind of what's the attitude in your mind this morning? So 1 or 2 or even 3 words that might describe your mood. Yeah. So Suzanne, can I actually start with you while people are gathering their thoughts and getting ready to share their mood? How are you feeling this morning? What attitude did you wake up with?
I kind of had I got up more slowly this morning. I was feeling a little creaky and but then I opened up the shades and saw the sunny day, and that always makes me feel better. So it was a little bit of a mix.
Yes.
How about you?
I woke up feeling pretty happy. I think happy is the word that captures it. And it's funny, I'm just looking at some of the comments coming in. Yeah, I mean, the weather helps. Yesterday was beautiful and today the sun is out. So some optimism, some frustration, some tiredness, the attitude of persistence, the sun helps. Yeah, I think that's so true.
One thing I started thinking about, someone mentioned about daylight savings to me yesterday, and I didn't even think about that's coming up very soon, which is another, first of all, March coming is the sign of spring, and then secondly, daylight savings, where we have a little more light will be lovely.
I know. I think the light helps. But the thing is, I look at, there's such a, variety of kind of emotions and attitudes and feelings in the mind. And that these flux, these come and they go. And I think it's always helpful. And this practice really helps us see that no thought, emotion, or body sensation is permanent. And so there is there's a way to kind of rest in that ever-changing, both emotional and physical state. And I think this practice points that out very clearly, because we really start to see that, especially with challenging or difficult emotions, that those have a changing nature too. And in some ways, if we can turn toward them, bring our attention to the physical expression of those emotions, we'll see kind of how it's often also not solid. There are various sensations that you can kind of tap into and just bring an attitude of receptivity and interest to whatever you might be feeling. But enough about that. What I'd like to do is lead us in, probably 10 to 13 minutes of a guided practice. So we will start with a kind of a focused concentration practice where we're actually looking for an anchor, like breath or body sensation, as a way to help steady or calibrate the mind. And so that's what we're gonna do is more of a focused concentration practice. And then toward the end, I just, once we come out of meditation, I do want to share a few thoughts around why consistency in meditation is important, why that matters in terms of seeing results, for lack of a better word. I always say we have to like hold results lightly and practice and actually see what happens. Having said that, let's go ahead and get started as we always do, by just simply finding a posture that feels like it's going to serve you best this morning. And standing is always a fine option. So if you feel especially sleepy or tired or even anxious, sometimes standing is a really helpful practice. So you just, stand with the arms alongside the body, with a little bit of a tilt in your pelvis to relieve any lower back strain. And sitting, of course, is fine as well. And eyes open or closed, whatever is going to serve you best. If you decide to keep the eyes open, gaze downward just a little bit in front. So let's go ahead and establish a posture. So either standing or sitting, settling into a posture that feels most easeful for you this morning. And I'm going to ask on your own to take 2 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth with a bit longer exhalation, as a way to settle any surface tension from the activity of the morning. So go ahead on your own and take a couple deep breaths. And we'll begin by letting go of what has happened so far today and releasing anticipation of what's to come. So bringing the mind and the body together in this moment, aware of the points of contact with the back of the body or the soles of the feet and the surface. Just noticing those subtle touch points and what that feels like. Noticing how your body is physically. What are the sensations that are making themselves known? Again, from your activity so far this morning, things like pulsing or vibration, temperature. Just taking a moment on your own to kind of just look through the body, bringing your awareness and noticing what sensations are there. With an attitude of allowance and receptivity. So nothing to do, but just allow and let those sensations be. And just for a moment, let's open up to sound in the room or outside of the room that you happen to be in. Just receiving sound without labeling what's making it, but just simply hearing. And for a moment, allowing that to serve as an anchor for the wandering mind. And allowing sound to remain in the background, beginning to bring the awareness back inward to the body. Start to notice the rhythm of your breath. And so you don't have to change your breath or make it different. Just as you inhale and exhale, where in the body do you notice that sensation the most? It could be the abdomen or the chest, the nostrils, or just an overall sense of body breathing in and body breathing out, and noticing that physical expression in the body. So really bringing attention to the physical experience of breathing, tracking that in breath tracking that out breath. And as the mind wanders, which it naturally will, a whole bunch of times, each time you notice, not a problem. You notice and you escort your attention back to breath sensation in that area of the body that seems best for you. If for any reason breath isn't working well this morning, you can go back and use sound as your anchor, just tracking the sound in the room you're in or outside of the room. Or you can also bring attention to a different part of the body where there is a sensation present that allows you to connect in. So most of the duration of this practice will be silent. I'll occasionally offer a reminder to just notice where the mind is, to escort it back to your anchor. Noticing where the mind is, and just releasing the narrative, even labeling thinking, and returning attention to your chosen anchor this morning. And again, noticing where the mind is. Make a mental note thinking and return attention to your anchor. And in just a moment, you'll hear the sound of a chime, and you can move attention from your anchor to the sound and see if you can track the sound all the way out until you can no longer hear it. And as you feel ready, turning your attention back to the room that you're in and to each other.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tara.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I want to say just a couple of words around consistency in practice and why that matters. I think that there's enough science now to point us in the direction of consistency matters in terms of what is happening within the brain. And we know that a regular and consistent meditation practice increases gray matter in the regions of the brain that are important for attention, emotion regulation, and mental flexibility. And over the years, the peer-reviewed studies have increased dramatically. So I think it's from 2009 to 2018, there are probably it's over 4,600 peer-reviewed studies, and so much of it points to how when we practice on a very regular basis, the consistency, it makes a difference in terms of changing structures in the brain. And when you think about it's important for attention, it's important for emotion regulation and for mental flexibility. Like those are all things that are so valuable to us on a day-to-day basis, right? So mental training and consistency is literally what makes the difference. And the other thing I think to keep in mind is that mindfulness meditation teaches us how to work with distressing thoughts and emotions without being overpowered by them, and also without rejecting or distracting, which are two common strategies that tend to give anxiety more power. And we know through training that whatever we incline the mind toward, we train. As Dr. Richard Davidson says, wittingly or unwittingly, we're always training our attention in some way. But when we practice paying attention, as we do in meditation, paying attention literally becomes easier for the brain because that's what we're inclining toward on a regular basis. And what mindfulness meditation does, and again, you say the word meditation and it's like saying the word sports. There's lots of different kinds. So mindfulness meditation highlights what's on our mind so that we can see our mental habits and our patterns more clearly. So this enables us to see, to turn toward, to be with, and then to change the channel. So the idea is we notice, label, and redirect. The mind is a thought generating machine. Like we're not trying to make it happen. And the idea is that we simply relate with awareness, with allowance, with a willingness, and with compassion to whatever arises without rejecting. And this helps our life to just become more integrated, and that our well-being is not dependent on external conditions. So when it relates to consistency, Dr. Amishi Jha, who some of you have heard me talk about in the past, one of where she has seen measurable improvements is 12 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week for 4 weeks. And so that's, there's differing studies about the amount of time. And mostly what I say that I think is the differentiator is just the willingness to commit to practice daily or daily-ish. And Jackie Johnson, who's one of our Tuesdays, she's a frequent teacher guest on Tuesdays, has a formula that I use a lot and I like, which is 5 minutes, 5 times a week for 5 weeks. What I have found in teaching meditation and mindfulness in general is that the actual practice, even 5 minutes is often difficult, not because we can't find the time, but it's more about being with the anxiety that often arises when we're not distracted. So, and yet this practice, it gives us a methodology, a way to kind of turn toward the, which most of us will have to some degree when we begin practicing, but there's a way to be with it. It's just discomfort. It's unpleasant. And there's a way to actually be with that unpleasantness by bringing that sort of attitude of curiosity and receptivity coming out of the narrative and feeling it physically in the body. So, those are just a few things that I wanted to say, but, I think, another sort of, so 5 minutes, 5 times a day for 5 weeks, I'm sorry, 5 times a week for 5 weeks is a good rule of thumb. And I think, the other thing that is really helpful is just vowing to get to your meditation cushion or chair. Like, it's a good idea to have a place in your house that is kind of set aside for practice. And you say, I might not practice today, but I vow to go over to that space. And so start to build the consistency of practice, because that is really what's going to make the difference. So I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions that any of you have as you're on the call this morning.
Yeah, I love what you say in regards to the difficult emotions and how when we're sitting and when we don't have the other distractions, we're really able to see what happens in our body during those difficult times and make, like you said, make a different decision about it.
Yeah.
So it, like you said, training the mind, it teaches us to do that when we're not sitting, when we're just
right.
dealing with difficult people and we want to jump in and just say something right away. And we realize, okay, maybe we should just see what's happening in our body. I'm getting all,
Yes.
I feel myself get like warm and, agitated, and it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the whole practice is about taking it off the cushion, so to speak, and into the world, so, we're learning to steady or calibrate attention so mindfulness can do its job better. And you're employing that concentration in the service of your day-to-day life, which, I think to what you're pointing to, Suzanne, allows you to align with your deepest values for who you want to be on a day-to-day basis. So when that family member or coworker or somebody triggers you, you've been working enough with your body and your mind that you feel the trigger and you're not reactive. The reactivity is lessening. It's like, ooh, I'm triggered. I can actually do something here and I can respond in alignment with my values rather than react and say something that I later regret. And when we do that, it's a learning experience. None of us are perfect.
Someone asked, can you mention again the mechanisms the brain uses related to anxiety when one is not having a regular practice of mindfulness?
The mechanisms related to anxiety when one not is having a regular. Well, so Teresa, what I would say to that, and I don't know if this is going to answer your question well or not, but we do know that there are certain parts of the brain that, like the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is responding to fear and anxiety and stress. And in all the, many of the studies, numerous studies, we see that the amygdala actually gets a little smaller. It's less active. And so, that would be a desirable outcome that you would get from a regular, consistent practice. And, in some ways, I think of it as, if you were going to run a road race. So, and I've been a runner for many years, and I've done a few races, not a lot, but I there are people that will just jump in without any practice at all and then be suffering greatly as they're getting near to the finish line. And so, slowly, day by day by day, we are starting to build this capacity and make that there are structural changes in parts of the brain, like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and the hippocampus. Those parts of the brain all work as in a dynamic way, and we know change in optimal ways with regular practice.
Mm.
I see, I just want to comment on the restless pinball mind challenging practice today, and that's all good. So when our minds are unsettled, it's simply see if you can turn toward it and label it as unsettled mind and unpleasant, and then see if you can let go of the narrative and feel in the body, what does restless pinball mind feel like physically? What's the physical expression of that? So you tap into that, and then you return attention to your object. So anytime your attention is called, whether it's pinball mind or an itch or a muscle cramp or a sound, you always leave your primary object. You don't have to fight to stay with it. Just let it go, hearing, feeling, hang out with it, and then return to your object.
And I've heard that people say that returning is what is training the brain. So
yes,
almost like the thoughts that take us away are actually helping us because we have to come back. And that's
absolutely
making those synapses.
Yes, so thoughts are not wrong. Like the brain is a thought generating machine, it's doing its thing. We're just deciding when we see we've gone into a story or a narrative or a memory and we see it, we're just going to bring the attention back. And sometimes I just say, oh, not now. And, just track. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Tara.
Yeah.
I think that I love having the questions. So keep those questions coming, everyone, because most likely many others have the same question that you have. So we're really grateful that you've.
I just want to say one thing, Suzanne. I'm just noticing this from Cindy that I'm finding meditation difficult as I grieve the loss of both of my parents. Any suggestions? I just happened to notice that. So first, Cindy, my deepest condolences to you and to your family. And I would say that it makes perfect sense that meditation is difficult as you grieve. To be easy with yourself with practice. So maybe just try a couple of minutes and see what grief is feeling like physically. How is grief landing in your body? So you're really, sort of opening to that in a very particular way. Like how is this loss showing up physically? Where am I feeling it? See if you can bring your attention to that. And I would also say, engage in walking meditation, because sometimes with a lot of grief or anxiety, a movement practice is really helpful. So I hope that was useful. And again, my condolences.
Thank you again. So we are heading towards the end. So thank you everyone for again engaging with the practice this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Always a pleasure to be with you on Thursday, and I'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah, and just a few ways to keep in touch quickly. We have Tuesday, we will have Paul Fulton here leading us in another guided practice. And we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:30. You can visit us on our website for virtual fitness classes, Zumba, yoga, and wellness webinars, as well as mindful.org/pain for pain management resources and using mindfulness to help with pain management, both in English and in Spanish, as well as just check us out on Facebook. And if you're looking to find this session, older sessions, or even some of Tara's interviews with mindfulness researchers, go to YouTube at MindtheMoment and click on videos. So again, thank you so much, Tara, for guiding us along and asking all these very, very important questions. And we look forward to being together again soon.
Yeah.
See you next Tuesday.
Enjoy Paul on Tuesday. He's wonderful. I think all of our instructors are wonderful in very, very different ways. So, yeah, I'll join Tuesday too, of course.
Okay. See you then. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.